If you ask any entrepreneur, they'll tell you they're busy. And it's true, all entrepreneurs are busy. Yet why is it that some of them produce at such a higher level than others? Well, it has to come down to what they're busy with. And what I have found as I've coached and been an entrepreneur is that many just simply don't have the right systems and processes in place to spend the right amount of time on the right things, the things that create the greatest value. Today's episode, we interview a business coach whose impact is international and have helped tens of thousands of businesses to implement a simple system for improving both systems and processes that allow you to all of a sudden begin spending your time on the things that matter most. If you've ever wanted to know, how can I outperform where I've been performing? Today's the day. We're going to share with you all the details, a simple framework on how to do exactly that. So the big question is this: how do those of us in the real estate industry who have crazy amounts of ambition, how do we think bigger than the building of our own empires? How do we create success and significance, income and impact? My name is Justin Stoddard. This is my co-host Stephanie Peck. And together we bring you the Think Bigger. All right, welcome back, everybody. Very excited to be on today's episode with Gary Harper of Harper Business Solutions. Gary, such a pleasure to be with you today. Thanks for joining us on the Think Bigger Real Estate podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks, Stephanie, as well. And I'm excited about today and the value we might be able to bring to listeners, to your audience.
I love it. I kicked off our conversation sharing that most real estate agents don't have good systems and processes, right? There's a few elite who do, one of which I would argue is my co-host, Stephanie, who is a systematic person. Stephanie, I would even probably venture to say, though, that there are certain things that you would like to be more systematic about. As you've contemplated today's topic, what is it that you want to learn about systems and processes that we could really get some great insight, both for you as well as for our audience today?
Yeah, you nailed it, Justin. I have a lot of systems in place, but there are always more. And I'm finding as I scale and grow my team, I find myself saying the same things over and over that I think if I had this documented and it didn't just live in my brain, then everyone could benefit from the same information and not just me or a person benefiting from hearing it from me. So I'm really excited to learn how I can streamline that process, because it is a daunting process that none of us are really too excited to do.
Yeah, and I think every time you level up your business to another level, the systems you had oftentimes break, right? Mm-hmm. So really excited again to introduce today's guest, who's really built a framework that makes it simple to improve systems and processes. Gary, before we dive too much into that, give us just a quick background on you. I know you come out of being an executive for a Fortune 500 company. Tell us kind of the brief story of what that looked like so people know who they're talking to today.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, it started really in 1997. I actually moved to Northwest Indiana, and my brother-in-law was in real estate, and I actually moved into his houses. My very first real estate transaction was at a very young age. And my brother-in-law said, "Hey, I'll tell you what, come work for me. I'll teach you how to buy and sell real estate." And it was funny. My very first thing that I did with real estate was actually work for him. I rehabbed houses with him. And during the night, I would sleep in the rehabs. I actually had a Glock 9mm, and I would stay in the rehabs to keep people from breaking in and stealing the copper. Right? We rehabbed houses, and not some nice areas. And so that was late 90s. And then I actually got into corporate America, right? And so I went into corporate, and I started off at like $7.15 an hour. I worked my way up. By the time I was 23, 24 years old, I was a national manager of business initiatives and development, working between operations and sales as an analyst to evaluate businesses on how they could do better. And then I worked my way into, we got bought out, and then I worked my way up into a Fortune 500 company. And I got Six Sigma certified. I had over 750 employees throughout the Midwest. I had about 60 mid-level managers that was working for me at some point. And 2008, 2009 came around, and I was pretty heavy into real estate at that point. And I was doing it to supplement income and try to create a retirement plan for myself. It was more of a passive play than an active play. But, the market wasn't really nice to me, as it wasn't very nice to most people in 2008 to 2010. And and I lost it all. I mean, I crashed and burned. I bought way too deep, and they reassessed taxes, and houses went underwater, and I ended up losing it all in 2010, 2011. I had to file bankruptcy, and I was licking my wounds from real estate. And I decided I'm just going to focus 100% on my corporate job. You see a lot of awards here behind my head, and I had one of a ton of awards in corporate America, Executive of the Year, many years, all exotic trips paid around the world. And I was like, man, this is working well for me, and real estate's not, so I'm going to focus there. But God had other plans for me. I got bit by a tick. I came down with Lyme disease that year as well. I went back to like a 5-year-old mental state and wasn't able to really function properly. And I had to step down. I couldn't do the job I was doing in corporate America. I was flying every week, and I was away from my home and my family, and my nervous system was a wreck. And because of where it bit me, I ended up with, like 26 panic attacks a day on average, and, 13 days of no sleep. And God really just redirected my life. And so I didn't know what he had for me. I took a year of trying to heal and get better, and knock on wood, I was able to get back to where, and I made a promise to God that year. I said, God, if you give me my life back, I'll give it back to helping other people. And so he did. And I've tried to keep that promise now over the last 10 years. But, I had to get healthy. I had to get healthy financially. I called that my year of Job. Like I wrote a book titled Is Your Business Sick? And that year of Job for me is I lost my wealth. I lost my health. I lost my career. My purpose changed. Honestly, everything had shifted for me. And so I found myself back in real estate. And my brother-in-law was like, hey, Gary, come help me again. Like, let's do some more real estate together. And I'm like, man, Wayne, I don't know. Like, I just don't want to hold all these properties and have all this risk and, all that. And he's like, well, let's do some wholesaling. Let's get in and get out, and we called it the money's in the meter drop, like you get in a cab and you make them, the cab driver makes the money on the meter, not the fare. You get the people in and out of the cab as fast as possible. So we said, we're going to do that. We're going to wholesale. And we did. We wholesaled. And by 2016, we were doing 300 deals a year. And over 1,000 transactions total in those 6, 7, 4, about 6 years. And I decided to take a little time to myself. And, but, I was being reminded daily that, I had a purpose to fulfill, and I owed a promise to God. And so I took about 6 months away from everything in real estate. And I'm sorry, I took some time away from real estate, and my phone just kept ringing, kind of like right there. And people were calling me, they were asking me, people were calling me and they were asking me to come help them with their business in real estate. And they saw us scale, and we were part of masterminds. And that's what we did, right? Like I started going around and traveling and helping people. And it wasn't even a business yet. It was just me coming in, spending a day with a team, kind of helping them get structure and order in place. And people started to grow. And I started having entrepreneurs, 4X, 5X their business, in some cases, even 10X their business. And fast forward, it became a business, became Harper Business Solutions. And I decided to write a book. It's called The Rise Business Framework, along with others. I've had the Purpose to Rise, and I even have a children's book up there on purpose. And now, fast forward, almost 9 years later, we've helped over 4,000 businesses, been on some big stages, worked with pretty big clients. We work with a lot of the top 5% real estate investors in the country right now. And so that's kind of the journey to where we are today. And, I just feel very blessed, to be able to turn things around from where they were. And I know there's a lot of people out there right now. They're starting to experience an economy, as a real estate investor that we haven't seen in a little while. And I think we had the lowest single family house sales in 24 and 23 that we've had since 1995. And so it's not as easy as it once was. And people are starting to find out and feel the need for systems, right? The need for understanding their business and their process. And I said yesterday, we've got to be in a business right now where we're making data-driven decisions, right? And so that's a little bit of a story there.
There's so much of your story that resonates with me. Number one, I love a comeback story. Who doesn't, right? Someone who was like against the ropes and fought back. And boy, that Lyme disease, I know how debilitating it can be. Not personally, but from people that are close to me, and it's amazing that you've come back and been as productive as you have. and then turning your life over to God. I think that's something that's very near and dear to this show. At least it's two co-hosts. Is that we're very much people of faith, and we recognize that that is creates real purpose in life, right?
Yeah.
And so awesome story, Stephanie. What parts of his story really resonate with you?
Yeah, wow, what an incredible testimony for sure. When I think of what you said through the lens of a real estate agent, I mean, first of all, you paint a picture of a time, several times actually, that you stepped out of the business, whether it was intentionally to regroup or you were forced to for health reasons. I know that a lot of real estate agents and independent contractors, we kind of live by this just going mode, and we think, what if I couldn't do the business every day? Is there someone that could step in, or would I financially suffer? Would my family suffer? And would my business suffer? So tell us about the solutions you have for that would help someone through that situation.
It's funny. Whenever I start with an entrepreneur, because, there are 5 stages of business that entrepreneurs have to go through to reach success. And that's not Garyology, right? Like, that's a Harvard Business Review, 5 stages. And so what happens when I first start with somebody and they've built a business or entrepreneurship, they're always talking about their time, like, I want my time back. I want my time back. I want my time back. And I want to make sure I organize my time in a way that I'm not a single point of failure in my own company. And that's what you're referring to. Like, what if this, what if that? And so that's where usually most people get. But what happens is they build a business and they grow. And if they don't do it right, and they don't do it quite the right way, they get from, I want my time back, I want my time back, to I want my money back, I want my money back, right? And so it's this vicious cycle of time and money, time and money, time and money. And like, what's more important? And so, like, where do we put our effort? I think entrepreneurs, if they're going to be successful, they have to be obsessed, right? Like, I think people have to be obsessed with success to get to where they want to be. But they got to be obsessed about the right things, And so Sharper's purpose is to do a good work that supports God's work. That's our purpose. That's why we exist. Our purpose indicator is to give $2.6 million to God's work by 2026. That's our purpose. And so, like, everybody that I start with, it's like, where are you at in those 5 stages? And what's hurting you? What's holding you back? And so depending on where you are, it's kind of like going to the doctor, right? Yeah, wherever you are is where we meet you. And that's where we start to cure or fix the problem. If you're a beginning entrepreneur and it's all about you and you're the one that's going out, you're an agent, you don't have a true business built around you that helps us succeed without you, then you have to first start with your purpose. You have to start with why you're doing this. I'll tell you what, on those hard days, and you guys know this, when you're facing your hardest day, your purpose is what drives you. It's what gets you out of bed in the morning. It's what creates the passion, right? And the passion creates the obsession to want to get there. And so, like, we got to know what that is. We got to know what our purpose is. And so I always first, right? And then the next thing you got to do is, once you know your purpose, is you got to figure out how to achieve the purpose. What resources do you need to get there? Time, money, and people, right? That's the resources. So RISE is an acronym, and it stands for resources, inspiration, systems, and then engagement. And so it's interesting to me that when people start a new business, right, they go straight to engagement. They go to, how many people can I get my product in front of? How many sales can I make? Like, all those things. And what happens is they get stuck. They create a lifestyle around that, and they become trapped. And that's where they go, I want my time back. I want my time back. And so then they try to create systems and processes to gain their time back, right? And then they evaluate the goals and where are they going and what are they trying to achieve, and do I have enough or do I need more? And then they finally get back around to resources, which is, do I have the right people? Are they in the right seat? Am I the right person? How much time am I putting into this? And I always tell people, if you just grow the right way, once you have a passion, a product that makes profits, don't go to engagement. Don't go to expansion right away. Dial in your resources, your time, your money, and your people. Like, what people do you need? And so I always tell people to predetermine the time that you're going to give this. Is this 1 year? Is this 3 years? How much time? Because we all have to grind, right? We all have to be obsessed for a short period of time. And it's got to be some level of unbalance in order to achieve our purpose and what we want to accomplish. but I don't want to live there my whole life, right? And so I look at it and go, how much time am I going to give this? 6 months, a year? What am I looking at? And then how much money do I need to make? I started off, it wasn't much, Stephanie. It wasn't much at the beginning. Like, it was like, what is my freedom mark? Right? Like, where can I feel free? And it was just like $5,000 a month in cash flow. That's dating me a little bit. We're in a different time. That same 5,000 would probably be 20 grand today, but I needed 5,000 to feel free. So that time frame is like, how much time am I going to dedicate to this, and then how much money? Well, then I had my healthy mark, which is $10,000 a month, and then my abundant mark, which was $20,000 a month. Right? Like, when can I live in abundance and give back and help other people? Well, I've got a cash flow $20,000 a month. So first I had to know what the time frame I wanted to do this. And two is I had to know how much money I needed to make and how much money I needed to spend. And then number three, what people do I need? What resources do I need? Is this a vendor? Is this a VA? Is this an employee? Like, what resources do I need? And so we always start with building out like our process ownership chart and figuring out like, what are all the seats in my company, right? And which seats should I be in? Which seats should I not be in? Right? And so then based on that, we can figure out what people we need to bring into the company to help us succeed in areas that we're not going to succeed in. One of the mistakes I see a lot of entrepreneurs make is when they're building out their business, they don't create a business pro forma that helps them determine when to get out of seats, right? So it's one thing to know what seats you shouldn't be in. It's another thing to know how much money you need to make and how much money you need to spend. But it's also very important to know when to vacate, right? There's operating systems out there that'll tell you you're in the wrong seat. But the problem is they don't tell you when to get out. And so a lot of entrepreneurs will over leverage their business with people and cost themselves too much money. And that's when they get around to going, I want my money back. I want my money back. Remember the slogan? I want my time back. And then they get to a point, I want my money back. It's because they're not growing properly. We create product performance for our businesses every day. Stephanie, when I buy a house, I'm in the process of buying one right now. When I buy a house, I do a pro forma. I evaluate the ARV, I evaluate the scope of work, I evaluate all my costs. And I go, all right, based on the scope of work, how much money will I make on this property? And is it a good investment for me? Well, business has to be treated the same way. We need a business pro forma that matches the 1 year, the 3 year, the 5 year plans that we're creating to make sure that we know when to hire, when to step away. And that's how we protect it. Now, once we have that, then we can start to inspire the resources, right? Which is the I quadrant of Rise. Now we can create our vision, our purpose, our goals, our long-term vision, our short-term vision. And I always tell people long-term vision, inspires. It's what it's meant to do. It's meant to inspire us. Where are we going? If I was to tell you guys, hey, in 5 months, we're going to go to Disney World together, because I love Disney. But if we're going to go to Disney World together, you might feel inspired to want to go there, right? But how do we get there? Short-term vision drives the results of the company. So long-term vision inspires, short-term vision drives the results. And once we have that, we have the vision in place. The Bible says where there's no vision, the people perish. So we got to have vision. We got to have vision to inspire and to create hope and to get the resources behind us so that we can get to what we want to achieve in life. But then we get to a point that we want to start letting go. But you know what I don't want to do is I don't want to lose control when I let go. I think that's a fear that a lot of entrepreneurs have. I always tell people there's 4 reasons we don't scale properly. Number 1 is fear. Number 2 is mindset. Number 3 is connections, which is what I love about podcasts. It gives us connections, right? It connects us with the right people. And then last is systems and processes. Those are the 4 main reasons why companies fail to scale properly. And so when we get to systems and we got to let go, that fear creeps in. It goes, man, I don't know if I trust these people. I don't know if I trust the business. I don't know if I trust, this is my nest egg. This is my baby. I birthed this thing and I've given it my life and I've been obsessed about it for 3 to 5 years. And it's finally time, but can I let go? And systems allow us to let go without losing control. I created a 4 KPI system. We have 4 types of meetings. We have 4 types of positions and we have 4 types of KPIs. The 4 types of meetings we have is culture meetings. We have a culture meeting, and the KPI attached to that is our purpose indicator. What's our culture and what's our purpose, and how are we measuring our purpose? And then the leader, the visionary, the innovator of the company, CEO, if you will, is responsible for that KPI, and they're responsible for that culture meeting. Right? Then next meeting we have a strategic meeting. This is a quarterly type meeting where we're strategically planning for the growth of the organization. And typically I call it the business unit leader, the integrator, if you will, or the COO is responsible for that meeting. And they're also responsible for the profit indicator. I call it the key profit indicators of the company. And we determine profit indicators based on our purpose. Like, what are we trying to achieve here? The next meeting and person and KPI that we have is we have an organizational meeting. That's a weekly organizational meeting that we're trying to get performance from. So we have a KPI called a key performance indicator that measures the performance and if whether or not we're achieving it. And then the third thing, the third part of it is we have to have somebody who holds that meeting accountable and that KPI accountable. And that's typically your managers in your organization. Your marketing manager and your sales manager and your operations and your finance. Those managers come to that organizational meeting led by a COO, and they drive the performance of the organization on a weekly basis. But the number one metric that I find is the most important metric in the organization, the most important meeting in the organization, is what we call the tactical meeting. That's a daily huddle type meeting. It's a daily meeting that happens throughout the organization at different levels. The person responsible for that meeting and attending the meeting are the employees of the company, and they are tied back to what we call a key process indicator. And the key process indicator is probably the most important metric in your company. It gets measured on a daily basis versus a weekly or a monthly or even a quarterly basis. It's a daily number. And so we use this key process indicator in all aspects of our lives. I've lost a lot of weight. I was at 320 pounds after I got Lyme disease. It kind of killed my hormones. I got to 320 pounds, and now I'm down to about 210 right now. I've lost over 100 pounds. And, on that journey, I had to start tracking my key process indicator. I had to track my macros every day. I had to track my water intake every day. I've got a 40 ounce right here because I've got 2 more of those to get in today, right? I had to track my steps. I had to get on the scale. What did I have to do that for? Because I was tracking my activity, my daily tactical things that then led to performance. And performance then leads to a gain. And the gain helps us fulfill our purpose. And that's how those KPIs work together. And what's even more important is when you do it right? When you document your processes and you fill in your processes, you figure out your process of what your process indicators are that tell you the processes are working or they're not working, then what does that do for us as an entrepreneur? It allows us to let go. Because every day we have a dashboard of metrics that tell us it's working, right? And then as the innovator, I like to call the CEO's innovator, our job is to come back in, look at those numbers and come back in and innovate our processes when they're failing. Most people think people fail us, and it's not. It's actually 8 out of 9 times we fail to perform, it's process related, not people. Right? But people don't know that. They just get rid of the people and the new people come in. And what do? We train them on the process, and we find the breaks in the process and we fix it. And we're like, man, I'm sure glad I got rid of Joe. This one never got fixed. Well, it would have if you actually were to reviewed your processes on a daily basis with KPIs that were telling you it's working. In real estate, every day we have to have a showing. If we're going to hit performance every day, we have to get offers or make offers, right? Those are daily tactical things that lead to a performance metric of like a signed contract or closing, right? Those are performance metrics, but we can't get performance if we're not doing the daily processes that we have to do and make sure that they're streamlined properly and held accountable with metrics. And so that's kind of where Rise really takes it to a whole nother level is, yes, get your resources out of it, time, money, people, get out of the seats, get your time back. Then you have to inspire, make sure we're doing it for the right reasons, get our goals in front of us, let's inspire our people. But then we have to actually stop being a bottleneck. We got to start letting go without losing control, and meeting structures and KPIs and right process, procedures and policies help us let go without losing control. Then we get to the E quadrant, which is we've earned the right. We've earned the right to let go. We've earned the right for expansion. Now we can start to go in multiple markets. We can start to go in multiple areas of a niche of real estate. You can try out commercial versus single family, or you can start to do other things because you've earned the right for expansion. I think about Crumble Cookie. Crumble Cookie is a phenomenal organization. Have you had Crumble Cookie at all?
Of course.
Right? Of course. Do you know they're in 950 plus locations around the country?
Wow. Did not know that.
They started.
What was the question?
Do you know when they started?
I don't.
2017. They've grown very quickly.
Yeah, that's fast.
Yeah. When you think about most companies, you think like prior, if I don't even think I heard of Crumble Cookie before COVID, right? So how did they do it? Well, they did it the right way. They obviously didn't follow our framework, but I think they had our framework in mind when they followed it. Some of the most successful organizations in the world have had the key process indicator as their lead indicator as what they focus on every day. McDonald's is one. The speedy system was created because the McDonald brothers said a KPI needed to be improved, which was the amount of wait time to get your hamburger. They said they wanted a hamburger in 30 seconds, not 30 minutes. And so they redesigned their kitchen. They went out to a tennis court and they redesigned their kitchen 3 times because the process indicators told us it was taking too long. And now all kinds of fast food organizations have adopted the speedy system or a fair version of it to speed up their operations, all because of a process indicator. And so that's what RISE is all about, right? RISE allows us to systematically move our company through the 5 stages of business. And I always tell people the RISE, the Resource Inspiration Systems Engagement, is the bridge. It's the bridge from stage to stage. And if you do it right, you can grow any business successfully and let go without losing control in a profitable way.
Hey, Gary, I'm going to cut you off there for just a second. Stephanie, I'd love to hear your takeaways as we wrap up this episode. What's something that you've learned from Gary today that you feel like would be insightful to continue to scale PEX Realty Group to even greater levels than they have to this point?
Well, I can't turn back time 15 years ago and do it right the first day. But what I'm learning here is get your systems, your processes, your resources, your people in place first, because we in the real estate industry tend to just go hunting immediately. We jump right into that new lead source and we think this is going to be the thing that's going to flow clients my way. And then what do I do with them? And I hear that a lot. What I love that you said that really resonated with me is having a plan to move yourself out of positions. Mm-hmm. I love that because we realize that we don't have to be the quarterback. We don't have to be the only one calling the plays, doing all of the work. I guess we can just be the quarterback. We tend to position ourselves and be all the players. So that mindset for me, I'm going to take that into my growth and say, what's my plan to get myself out of the position? But first I have to understand my positions. So what I'm going to do is make a list of all of my jobs, give myself a job description for all of my jobs, and then just start picking them away. Which ones can I delegate to someone else or put someone in place to take that job? So then I can focus on my genius and just be doing that, not be doing all the things and waking up at 4:00 in the morning and making to-do lists like I did today.
Stephanie, there's a measurement to help you do that I want to give you, and it's called the heart, the head, the hands, and the feet. And so we always tell people, I like to write poems. So the heart, the head, the hands, the feet tell me you're in the right seat. So it's a little rhythm, a little rhyme that kind of helps you evaluate. So when looking at all those positions in your organization, the first question is, do I desire it? It's the heart. Do I desire this? Is this something that gets me out of bed in the morning? Is this something that gives me the emotional paycheck, right? Because 67% of the people that burn out or quit their job quit because of the lack of emotional paycheck, not the financial. And even as entrepreneurs, we get to a point where like, I don't want to do this anymore because you just emotionally aren't being rewarded. Number 2 is behavior, right? every process or seat you sit in has a process attached to it, right? Whether it's sales or TC, transaction coordinator, there's a process that person does traditionally. You got to ask the question, what behavioral traits do I want or do I need to do that process properly? We use predictive index and we assess people's behavioral traits based on what that process needs, right? So the hands, the skills. Skills is like, what training do I have? Am I the best person training wise, knowledge wise to do this role? And then the feet is what moves you, right? Like what competencies do you have that give you energy in this role? So that last piece, which is the feet, I use Patrick Lencioni's assessment called the working genius, because you talked about moving into your genius area. Well, you got to know what your working geniuses are. And Patrick, he's a friend of mine, when he actually created the working genius, he created it based on Ephesians 4 in the Bible. He said, we all have God-given talents. And so we want to make sure we're matching up the heart, the head, the hands, the feet to that process, not the position. People always hire for positions, and I always tell them, no. Your position is different in company from company. Sales can be different, vastly different from one company to the next, but the process can be matched up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, great advice. Thank you for that.
I think, one thing that stands out to me, for those that know, I lead a technology company called Pro Insight. And the first thing that we had to do, because again, I've always just run and grown small businesses. And now that we're in the process of building a big business, we needed to have pro formas, because you couldn't get investors to want to participate if they couldn't see the bigger picture. And you couldn't attract great talent members if they couldn't see a bigger picture. And I think sometimes we overlook that in small business, that it's just as important, like you described, with even like a rental property, investment property, of having a pro forma to know what is the outcome that I'm going to get if I do this well. Great, I like it, or it's not worth it. That should be the first determining factor of what actual size do I need to make this opportunity so that my heart and hands and head and feet are committed to it, and other people's are as well, to where I can actually attract great talent. Because reality is, I'm not qualified to do all the roles that a great business is going to need to do. And so I'm going to need to attract other people who have that unique ability that I don't have. And the only way to do that is to paint a picture of what we're building together. And then you attract great people. I look at, some of the great entrepreneurs of our time, like Elon Musk, for example, who just builds massive company after massive company after massive company. And he attracts just great talent, right? He casts a really big vision, bigger than anyone else can fathom. And as a result, talented engineers and talented people want to work on the projects he's working on. So there's a lot we can learn from great minds like that. And I appreciate you sharing that, Gary. As we wrap up here, Gary, I want to thank you for all you contributed today. I feel like we got hit with a fire hydrant in a good way. Lots of amazing stuff to share. And I feel like that people are going to want to go deeper. So how might people best find you in order to get more about the Rise Business Framework?
Yeah, I mean, we have 3 websites really you can go to. One, the Rise Business Framework, which is the book and where that is. But from a coaching perspective, it's sharperbusiness.com, right? That's where you would go to. They can also follow me on GaryHarper.com. That's where all my personal social media stuff is. We put out probably 3 to 10 videos a day on all our different platforms. So you can follow me there. But guys, I wanted to say thank you so much for allowing me to be on your show today. Stephanie, you have a great insight. Justin, I appreciate your commentary and your added knowledge and experience as well. So thank you guys both for allowing me to be part of this.
Yeah, our pleasure. For all those listening today, we thank you for tuning in. And our request of each and every one of you is take the stuff that Gary taught here today, apply something that big thinkers don't happen just by sitting around dreaming. They happen by putting your feet to the floor and get moving with something. And I think Gary's a great resource for all of us. So appreciate that very much. My final request of everybody is these 3 simple words, and they are go, think bigger. Gary, thanks for helping us do that today.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Before you go, we've got one more invitation for you. We all know that listening to a podcast is not enough to help you to become a big thinker and high achiever. We must take action. So the very first step, think about one lesson learned from this podcast that you'd like to apply, and send it to us in the form of a direct message at Think Bigger